In the boundless realms beyond mortal sight, where time weaves the fabric of eternity and shadows dance with light, there wanders a spirit cloaked in sorrow. Rachel, the weeping mother, whose tears echo through the heavens like the whispered prayers of forgotten souls. Her lament calls forth the sacred sisterhood of women, mothers chosen by fate and faith. Anna, Maria, Hagar, each bearing the weight of love, loss, and divine secrets. Together, their voices intertwine, revealing the mysteries of pain and redemption, the sacred path of motherhood carved in tears and triumph. This is their story, a journey through celestial realms, a testament to the unbreakable bond between mother and child, and a prophecy of hope written in the stars. Welcome to Rachel's Lament, the tears of the Holy Mothers. Chapter 1. The Weeping Shadow. In a vast expanse between mortal life and the eternal heavens, a realm where light and shadow intertwine in an endless dance, there wandered a solitary figure. She was Rachel, the weeping mother, whose sorrow was etched not only upon her soul, but upon the very fabric of the celestial realms. Her steps were soft, like whispers carried by a gentle breeze, yet each footfall echoed with the weight of centuries of loss. Rachel's eyes were deep pools of midnight, reflecting stars that flickered like fading memories. Her form shimmered with an otherworldly glow, a spirit caught between worlds, neither fully alive nor entirely departed. She bore the sacred burden of mothers who had lost their children, their love transcending death, their tears bridging the gap between heaven and earth. She moved through fields of shimmering light and shadowed groves where time held no sway. The air around her was thick with the scent of ancient incense and the quiet murmur of forgotten prayers. Every tear she shed rippled through the celestial waters, sending waves of grief and hope in equal measure. In this liminal space, the sorrow of humanity and the mercy of the divine intertwined. Rachel's lament was more than mourning. It was a call, a summons to those who shared her sacred pain. Her cry, tender yet powerful, stirred the heavens and roused the spirits of mothers long enshrined in biblical lore. From the distance, a figure appeared, bathed in soft golden light. It was Anna, the mother who knew the ache of longing, whose faith had been tested through years of silent prayers. Her eyes held the fire of resilience, the spark of unwavering hope. Anna stepped toward Rachel with measured grace, her presence a balm to the aching spirit. "Rachel," she said, voice gentle as the first dawn, "your tears awaken the silent prayers of generations. Together, we carry the weight of loss, and within our sorrow lies the seed of redemption." As they walked side by side through the celestial gardens, where trees bore the fruits of memory and streams sang songs of healing, Rachel felt the first flicker of warmth in her frozen heart. The path before them was unknown, yet it shimmered with the promise of revelation, a journey through sorrow and grace, through despair and hope. Further along the path, more figures began to gather, mothers cloaked in divine light, their faces etched with stories of sacrifice and love. There was Maria, whose gentle strength had cradled the world's salvation, and Hagar, the exile mother, whose faith had endured the harshest deserts. Each carried a story, a tear, a truth. Rachel's lament was no longer solitary. It had become a chorus, a sacred sisterhood bound by grief and faith, ready to reveal the divine mysteries hidden within their tears. Their journey would uncover secrets long veiled, illuminating the sacred ties between pain and redemption, motherhood and eternity. The heavens themselves seemed to hold their breath as Rachel lifted her gaze to the infinite sky. Her tears fell like stars, each one a testament to love unbroken, a promise that even in the deepest sorrow, hope endures. The lament had begun. Chapter 2. The Gathering of the Mothers. The celestial winds carried the haunting echoes of Rachel's lament far beyond the borders of the twilight realm. Her sorrow was no longer confined to a single soul, but stretched across the vast expanse of heaven, awakening those bound by the sacred thread of motherhood and loss. As if summoned by an unseen hand, figures began to emerge from the shimmering mists, drawn by the plaintive cries that spoke to their own buried griefs. Among them was Anna, the barren mother, her heart heavy yet unyielding. She was a woman who had walked the desert of silence for years, her prayers rising like incense to the heavens. In her hands, she carried not the weight of a child, but the fierce hope of a promise long awaited. Anna's eyes, pools of quiet strength, met Rachel's with a profound understanding, a bond forged in shared sorrow. Beside Anna appeared Maria, radiant and serene, yet carrying within her the deepest scars of sacrifice. She bore the pain of motherhood in its most profound form, the agony and ecstasy intertwined in a love that transcended life and death. Her presence brought a gentle light, a reminder that even amidst suffering, grace could bloom like a sacred flower. And then came Hagar, the exile mother, her spirit forged in the crucible of desert trials. She walked with the steady determination of one who had faced abandonment and rejection, yet remained unbroken. Her voice, though soft, carried the power of survival and unwavering faith. Together, these mothers gathered in a circle of light and shadow, their faces etched with stories older than time itself. Their tears mingled, forming a river that flowed through the celestial realm, a river that carried the hopes and pains of countless generations. Rachel, standing at the center, felt a surge of strength ripple through her being. She was no longer alone. Their voices, once solitary cries, now harmonized into a sacred song, one that spoke of loss, love, and the eternal promise of redemption. Each tear we shed, Maria whispered, is a testament to the love that binds us beyond death. Our pain is not a curse, but a passage, a bridge to the divine. Anna nodded, her gaze steady. Through our sorrow, we carry the prayers of those yet to come. We are the guardians of hope in a world often shadowed by despair. Hagar stepped forward, her eyes shining with fierce resolve. And through our faith, we kindle the light that will guide the lost home. The gathering of the Holy Mothers marked the beginning of a sacred quest, a journey to unravel the mysteries hidden within their tears and to seek the divine wisdom that would heal their broken hearts. As the celestial gardens around them bloomed with renewed life, Rachel lifted her voice once more. Her lament, now transformed into a song of hope, soared across the heavens, calling forth the strength to face the darkness ahead. The mothers were united, their tears a river of grace flowing through the cosmos. Their journey had just begun. Chapter 3: Secrets in the Tears. As the radiant assembly of holy mothers stood beneath the vast, star-strewn heavens, a sacred hush fell over the celestial gardens. The gentle rustling of leaves and the soft murmur of streams seemed to pause, as if the very universe was leaning in to listen to the whispered secrets held within each tear. Rachel, the weeping mother, felt a stirring deep within her spirit, a call to uncover the divine truths hidden beneath her sorrow. The tears that had once marked loss now shimmered with a newfound power, like fragments of forgotten prophecy waiting to be revealed. Maria stepped forward, her voice a soft melody carried on the celestial breeze. Tears are more than water and grief. They are vessels of memory, carriers of prayers, and bridges to the divine. In each drop lies a story, ancient as the stars, eternal as the heavens. Anna nodded, her eyes reflecting the light of distant galaxies. The pain of motherhood is the gateway to understanding. It is through our suffering that we glimpse the sacred mysteries of life and death, love and sacrifice. Hagar, ever steadfast, added, and in that understanding we find redemption, not only for ourselves but for all who suffer. Our tears are keys that unlock the gates to mercy and grace. Together, they began to walk along a winding path woven from threads of light and shadow, each step stirring the echoes of forgotten truths. The path led them to a shimmering pool, its surface smooth as glass, reflecting not only their faces but visions from beyond time. Rachel approached the pool cautiously, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and hope. As she gazed into the depths, scenes unfolded before her eyes. Visions of mothers from ages past, their tears mingling with hers in a sacred dance of sorrow and strength. She saw the silent prayers of Hannah, whose fervent plea had summoned a miracle. She witnessed the steadfast faith of Sarah, who carried the promise of generations in her womb. She felt the gentle embrace of Mary, whose sorrow bore the weight of the world's salvation. Each vision was a lesson, a fragment of divine wisdom etched into the fabric of their shared grief. The tears they shed were not signs of defeat, but of divine resilience, a testament to the unbreakable bond between mother and child, earth and heaven. The pool's waters shimmered brighter, and from its depths rose a radiant light, an ancient revelation that would guide them through the trials ahead. It was a message of hope hidden within sorrow, a promise that even the deepest pain could birth a new dawn. Rachel turned to her sisters, her voice steady with newfound resolve. Our tears are sacred. They carry the power to heal, to reveal, to transform. We must carry this truth into the world beyond, to bring light where there is darkness, comfort where there is despair. The mothers clasped hands, their tears falling once again into the celestial pool, now a wellspring of divine secrets and eternal love. Their journey was far from over, but with each step, the path became clearer, illuminated by the radiant glow of their shared faith. The lament had begun to transform, from sorrow into strength, from mourning into mission. Chapter 4. Voices Beyond the Veil. The celestial winds whispered softly through the eternal gardens as Rachel and the gathered mothers pressed forward on their sacred journey. Their footsteps echoed with purpose along the pathway of light, a route woven between realms, between the earthly and the divine. Each breath they took seemed to carry them deeper into a realm where time and space blurred, where voices of ancient prophets and long-forgotten saints murmured beyond the veil. Rachel's heart swelled with a mixture of anticipation and reverence. She knew that beyond this ethereal threshold lay truths that could shatter illusions and heal wounds as old as humanity itself. The mothers walked in silence, sensing the presence of unseen watchers, spirits of the past who had borne the pain of motherhood and had found their way to eternal peace. As they approached a vast crystal archway, a soft luminescence bathed their faces, revealing the intricate carvings of angels and cherubs frozen in time. It was the Gate of Whispers, a sacred portal said to hold the voices of the mothers who came before, their prayers and laments echoing through the ages. Rachel stepped forward, her mark, the emblem of maternal sorrow and strength, glowing faintly upon her chest. As her hand brushed the cool surface of the archway, the air around her seemed to ripple and pulse with energy. Suddenly, a chorus of voices filled the space, overlapping and weaving into a haunting melody. "Listen," Anna urged softly. The mothers speak. Voices rose, each distinct yet harmonizing in sorrow and hope. They told stories of loss and redemption, of faith tested and victories won in silent suffering. From the depths of the veil came the voice of Hannah, whose long years of barrenness were answered by a child destined for greatness. "I bore my pain in silence, but my prayers were heard." Her voice echoed, gentle yet resolute. "From my tears blossomed strength, and from my waiting a miracle." Maria's voice followed, tender and full of grace. "In the shadow of the cross, my heart broke, yet love was born eternal. Through sacrifice comes salvation, through sorrow comes light." Then Hagar's voice, steadfast and strong, rose in declaration. "In the wilderness, I learned that survival is faith made manifest. In exile, I found my strength, and in abandonment, the promise of divine care." The mothers listened, tears mingling as their own pain was mirrored and transcended by those who had walked before them. The voices from beyond the veil revealed not only suffering, but the sacred purpose that suffering bore, a path toward healing, reconciliation, and ultimate peace. Rachel felt a deep calm settle over her soul, a sacred trust that their journey was part of a grander design. The gate of whispers closed behind them gently, leaving the mothers bathed in renewed hope. Together, they stepped forward, ready to face the challenges ahead, guided by the voices of those who had become legends, mothers of faith, courage, and divine endurance. The lament was no longer just a cry of sorrow. It had become a call to awakening. Chapter 5. The Gathering of Sacred Mothers. The path ahead unfurled like a tapestry woven from threads of starlight and shadow. Rachel's footsteps grew steady as the celestial gardens around her began to shift, transforming into a vast amphitheater carved from luminous marble and vines blooming with radiant blossoms. This was the Hall of Eternal Mothers, a sanctuary where those who bore the divine gift of motherhood came to share their stories, their grief, and their strength. As Rachel entered, she was greeted by a gathering of ethereal figures, mothers whose faces reflected the ages, their eyes deep wells of wisdom and pain intertwined. Among them were Anna, the prophetess who awaited the coming of the Messiah with unwavering faith, Hannah, whose fervent prayers had opened the gates of blessing, and Sarah, the matriarch whose laughter bore the promise of generations yet to come. Each mother carried her own sacred burden, but together they formed a constellation of hope. Rachel felt their presence like a warm embrace, a sacred sisterhood bound not only by blood, but by shared sacrifice and love. "Your journey has brought you here," Anna said, her voice soft yet carrying the weight of prophecy. "But the path you walk is not one of ease. The shadows that cloud the earth seek to silence the voices of the mothers, to drown the light in sorrow and despair." Rachel's mark pulsed with a gentle fire. "I carry the tears of my people, but I also carry their hope. What must I do to restore the balance, to bring light to this darkness?" Sarah stepped forward, her smile both kind and knowing. "The tears you shed are the keys to redemption. But to unlock their power, you must gather the fragments of the lost word, the ancient truths scattered across the realms. Only then can the mother's lament become a song of salvation." Hagar, standing tall beside them, nodded firmly. "Your strength lies not in standing alone, but in uniting the hearts of those who suffer. In their shared sorrow, there is healing. In their shared hope, there is power." The mothers began to chant softly, their voices rising like a sacred hymn that resonated through the heavens. The melody wove through Rachel's soul, awakening a fire that burned away doubt and fear. She understood now that her tears were not a symbol of defeat, but the first step toward a greater mission. "Then I will seek the fragments," Rachel vowed, her voice clear and unwavering. "I will gather the lost word, and with it, restore the light to the earth and the heavens." The mothers reached out, their hands glowing with celestial light, and touched Rachel's forehead, bestowing upon her a blessing, a radiant shield forged from their love and sorrow. With it, she would face the trials to come, guided by the collective strength of the Holy Mothers. As the Hall of Eternal Mothers faded into shimmering stardust behind her, Rachel stepped forward, her heart steeled for the journey ahead. The lament of the mothers was far from over, but now it was a song of courage, unity, and divine purpose. The tears of Rachel would become the beacon in the coming storm. Chapter 6. The First Fragment, The Covenant of Tears. The journey beyond the Hall of Eternal Mothers led Rachel into the Valley of Echoes, a place suspended between worlds where every whisper, every sorrowful cry, lingered like a fragile thread in the fabric of existence. The air was thick with memories, moments of loss, hope, and quiet prayers long forgotten by time, but eternally preserved here. Rachel's footsteps stirred the echoes, and the mark upon her chest glowed steadily, guiding her deeper into the valley. She knew the first fragment of the lost word awaited her here, hidden within the very essence of the valley's mournful beauty. As she ventured further, The shadows coalesced into shapes, visions of mothers who had endured heartbreak, yet remained steadfast. Their eyes, filled with unshed tears, watched her silently, acknowledging her as one of their own. Suddenly, a soft voice called out from the stillness. "Rachel, child of sorrow, bearer of hope, are you ready to receive the covenant?" Turning, Rachel beheld a radiant figure cloaked in light, her presence both comforting and awe-inspiring. It was Miriam, the mother who wept at the foot of the cross, embodying the profound depths of grief and faith intertwined. "The covenant you seek is forged not in power, but in tears," Miriam said. "Each tear shed by a mother holds a sacred promise, a testament to love that transcends death and despair." Rachel reached out, and as their hands met, the valley shimmered with a brilliant light. From the ground emerged an ancient scroll, its edges worn but glowing with celestial script. "The Covenant of Tears." Miriam's voice echoed softly. "This fragment reveals that from mourning rises resilience. It teaches that through tears, healing flows, and from broken hearts, strength is born." Rachel unrolled the scroll carefully. The words spoke of a promise between the divine and the hearts of mothers, that their tears would never be wasted but would water the seeds of redemption across the earth. Her heart ached with the weight of the covenant, but she knew it was a gift beyond measure. Clutching the scroll to her chest, Rachel felt a surge of determination. "This covenant will be the first light to guide us through the darkness," she vowed. Miriam smiled, her form beginning to fade into the shimmering mist. "Go forth, Rachel. The fragments call to you, each a beacon in the night. And remember, you are never alone." With renewed purpose, Rachel pressed onward, the first fragment secured and the promise of redemption lighting her way through the valley's lingering shadows. The lament had begun its transformation, from sorrow into strength, from loss into hope. Chapter 7. The Whisper of Anna's Prayer. The path ahead wound through a forest veiled in twilight, where shadows danced between ancient trees whose branches seemed to reach for the heavens. Rachel moved silently, her heart beating with the rhythm of the sacred covenant she now carried. The air was thick with a reverent stillness, broken only by the soft murmur of a distant prayer. From the depths of the woods, a gentle voice rose, a melody woven with yearning and faith. It was Anna, the prophetess, known for her unyielding hope and devotion, whose prayers had once pierced the veil of silence to announce the coming of salvation. Drawn by the sound, Rachel stepped into a clearing bathed in a soft celestial glow. There, kneeling before a radiant altar, was Anna herself, her eyes lifted toward the stars as she poured out her soul in a prayer that echoed across the realms. Rachel approached quietly, feeling the power in Anna's words, a sacred call that stirred the very essence of creation. "Anna," Rachel whispered, "I seek the next fragment of the lost word. Will you guide me?" Anna turned, her face serene yet filled with an ancient wisdom. "The fragments are not mere relics," she said softly. "They are living truths, breathed into existence by the faith of those who believed when all hope seemed lost. To find the next fragment, you must understand the strength that prayer can summon, the courage born from unwavering trust." Anna extended her hand, and a brilliant light unfolded from her palm, a delicate, glowing scroll that shimmered like morning dew. "This is the fragment of prayer," Anna explained. "It teaches that even in the deepest night, the light of prayer is a flame that never dies. It connects the earth to the heavens, binds the broken, and calls forth miracles." Rachel reached out, her fingers brushing the scroll as a wave of warmth flooded her spirit. She felt the sacred power of countless prayers, a tapestry of voices joined in hope and longing. "Take this fragment, Rachel," Anna urged. "Carry it with you, and let it be a shield in the battles to come. For prayer is both sword and sanctuary." With the fragment of prayer now in her possession, Rachel bowed her head in gratitude. She knew her journey was far from over, but with each fragment, the weight of despair lessened, replaced by a rising tide of light. The whispers of the mothers were growing louder now, a symphony of faith and resilience that would guide her through the darkest nights. As Rachel stepped away from the glowing altar, the forest seemed to breathe around her, the path ahead illuminated by the promise of hope and the power of prayer. Chapter 8. The Veil of Hagar. The path from the forest opened onto a barren plain, where the air shimmered with heat and the sky burned with hues of crimson and gold. The silence here was different, heavy, almost sacred, as if the land itself bore the weight of countless untold stories. Rachel paused, feeling the mark on her chest pulse faintly, a steady beacon amid the vast desolation. From the horizon emerged a figure draped in simple robes, her eyes fierce yet filled with an ancient sorrow. It was Hagar, the outcast mother, whose story had been woven with exile and survival. Her gaze met Rachel's, and in that silent moment, a deep understanding passed between them, both mothers marked by loss and hope. "Welcome, child of David," Hagar's voice carried like the desert wind. "You have come seeking the fragments that will restore the kingdom of heaven. Know this: every tear shed in exile is a seed of new life." Rachel stepped forward, her heart heavy with reverence. "Hagar, will you share the next fragment with me? The one hidden in the depths of suffering and redemption." Hagar nodded, extending her hands toward the sky. The wind stirred, lifting the sands in a swirling dance, and from the midst of it all, a glowing tablet appeared, etched with celestial symbols that seemed to pulse with divine energy. "This is the fragment of exile," Hagar explained. "It teaches that even in abandonment, there is a purpose. Pain is not the end, but a passage, a veil that, once crossed, reveals the strength of the soul and the mercy of the Creator." Rachel reached out and grasped the tablet, feeling the harshness of the desert tempered by a quiet, enduring power. She sensed the stories of those who had wandered lost, yet were never forsaken, their spirits forged in the fires of hardship. "The path ahead will be hard," Hagar warned gently. "But with this fragment, you will carry the resilience of mothers who survived the wilderness and returned to hope." As Hagar's figure began to fade into the shimmering heat, Rachel tucked the fragment of exile safely within her cloak. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the plain, but Rachel's heart burned with a renewed light. She was no longer alone in this journey. The tears and prayers of the Holy Mothers flowed within her, weaving a tapestry of strength and redemption that would guide her through the gathering darkness. With the fragment of exile in hand, Rachel moved forward, a beacon of hope in a world desperate for salvation. Chapter 9. Mary's Song of Sorrow and Grace. The winds carried Rachel across rolling hills bathed in silver moonlight, their gentle sway a stark contrast to the turmoil inside her. The night sky stretched endlessly, a canvas splattered with stars, silent witnesses to the stories etched in time. Among these, one story shone brighter than the rest. Mary, the mother who bore both divine love and unimaginable sorrow. Rachel's footsteps slowed as she entered a sacred grove where the air was thick with incense and the soft hum of distant hymns. At the heart of the grove stood Mary, her figure glowing with an ethereal light that seemed to pulse with both sorrow and serenity. Her eyes held the weight of prophecy, sacrifice, and boundless compassion. "Rachel," Mary greeted, her voice a melody woven from hope and pain. "You carry the mark of the lion, the legacy of kings, and the burden of salvation. But remember, the path of the mother is carved with tears and grace." Rachel approached reverently. "Mary, I seek the fragment that holds the power to heal and redeem, the light that can restore the kingdom of heaven. Will you share it with me?" Mary smiled softly, and from her hands emerged a radiant chalice, its surface shimmering like liquid starlight. "This is the fragment of compassion. It is born from sorrow but blossoms into grace. Through compassion, wounds are healed, and love transcends even the deepest despair." Rachel reached out, and as her fingers touched the chalice, she felt a surge of warmth and peace flood her being. Memories of loss intertwined with moments of unexpected kindness and hope, a sacred reminder that even in suffering, love endures. Carry this fragment close to your heart, Mary said gently. Let be a beacon when shadows threaten to consume you. Compassion is the force that binds the broken and lights the way to redemption. The grove seemed to pulse with renewed life as Mary's presence shimmered and faded into the night. Rachel stood alone, but no longer empty. The fragment of compassion now a living flame within her soul. With each step forward, the echoes of the Holy Mothers grew stronger, their voices rising like a chorus of hope and strength. Rachel knew the journey ahead would demand everything, but armed with their gifts, she was ready to face the trials that awaited. The kingdom of heaven was closer than ever, hidden within the fragments, waiting to be reborn through faith, courage, and love. Chapter 10. The Scroll of Miriam. The path beyond Mary's grove led Rachel into the heart of a desert not made of sand, but of forgotten memories. A place where silence stretched for miles and the sky burned with a golden intensity. It was not heat that oppressed here, but a strange weight, as though centuries of untold stories pressed down upon the soul. Rachel moved forward, guided by the gentle pull of the fragments already gathered. Her footsteps stirred echoes in the dust, ancient voices buried beneath layers of pain and time. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the emptiness, lifting the dust into a whirlwind that shimmered like fireflies. From its center emerged a figure, regal and fierce. She wore robes the color of sun-baked earth, and her eyes were like wells of wisdom. Her name struck Rachel's heart before it reached her ears. Miriam, sister of Moses, prophetess and guardian of songs long forgotten. Daughter of sorrow, Miriam intoned, you walk the line between life and eternity. I have heard the lament of your spirit. Rachel bowed. I seek the truth held in the stories of the mothers. Their tears are stars guiding me. Yours is a voice I've longed to hear. Miriam raised a hand, and the winds calmed. From the folds of her robe, she pulled a scroll bound in gold thread. As she unraveled it, ancient symbols danced like flame upon the parchment, alive with divine breath. This is the scroll of remembrance, she said. It bears the songs of the Holy Mothers, verses of anguish, visions of hope. My voice was once lost in the wilderness, but now I offer it to you. Take this scroll and sing. Rachel touched the scroll, and it unfurled completely on its own. As she read, her voice began to rise, first trembling, then strong. The desert around them bloomed with phantom lilies, each petal singing back the words she spoke. Miriam began to dance, her tambourine echoing the heartbeat of the heavens. Through the rhythm and the song, Rachel was drawn into a vision. Women by rivers, intense beneath stars, cradling children, weeping, laughing, praying. It was a symphony of the soul, stretching from Eve to the last mother yet to be born. The scroll held not just words, but a lineage of strength. When the vision faded, Rachel stood transformed. Her voice, now filled with sacred memory, was no longer her own. It belonged to them all. Let this scroll be your shield, Miriam said, handing it to her. When doubt clouds your heart, let their songs remind you who you are. Rachel clutched it tightly. Thank you. Your voice will echo in mine. I promise to carry it through the storm. With a final smile, Miriam dissolved into wind and light. The desert returned to silence, but the scroll pulsed with quiet fire in Rachel's arms. She turned and walked on, her shadow long behind her, her eyes fixed on the horizon. The journey was not over, not yet, but with each step, she was no longer walking alone. Chapter 11. The Wound of Hannah. Beyond the singing sands and the scroll of songs, Rachel entered a realm of deep twilight, a quiet land of soft hills and dim meadows where the stars lingered close to the earth. Here, the wind hummed lullabies not yet sung, and the trees bent low as though listening to ancient secrets. It was in this stillness that Rachel felt the pull once more, and her path led her to a solitary house of stone, cloaked in ivy and mist. Inside, a single light flickered, a lantern shaped like a tear. Beneath it sat a woman, wrapped in silence. Her hands rested on her womb, empty but glowing faintly, as though still bearing the echo of life. Rachel stepped forward with reverence. "Are you Hannah, the one who wept in the temple?" The woman looked up. Her eyes, pools of deep longing and steadfast faith, met Rachel's. "I am she," she said softly, "the barren one who pleaded with heaven until heaven could no longer ignore my cry." Rachel knelt before her. "Your tears watered the soil of promise. I have followed them through time, seeking the truth in the pain." Hannah reached behind her and pulled forth a cloth bundle. She unwrapped it carefully to reveal a mirror, dark and veined like obsidian, but glowing faintly at its center. "This is the mirror of the unseen. In it one does not see their face, but the wounds they carry." She held it up to Rachel, who peered into it. At first, nothing, only darkness. Then shapes emerged. A cradle left empty. A scream swallowed in the night. A hand reaching through shadows. Rachel staggered back, breath caught. "I see all of them," she whispered. "Their grief, it's unbearable." "And yet they bore it," Hannah replied. "We mothers walk with invisible wounds. The world praises our strength, but forgets the battle. This mirror is truth, not to shame you, but to remind you that pain, too, is sacred." Rachel looked again. This time, within the darkness, she saw light, small but fierce. Every wound flickered like a candle, refusing to die. She nodded slowly, tears welling in her eyes. "I understand. These wounds, they're not just memories. They're altars." Hannah smiled gently. "And you, Rachel, are their keeper." She placed the mirror in Rachel's hands, and as she did, a tremor passed through the room. The air thickened with the presence of unseen women, watchers, mourners, warriors in silence. Rachel turned, and for a moment, she saw them, women in shawls and veils, in robes and ashes, each holding a child who was, or could have been. The house disappeared like a breath exhaled, and Rachel found herself on a winding path of moonlit glass, the mirror pressed to her heart. She walked, her feet light, her burden shared. Each step rang with unseen footsteps, Hannah's, Mary's, Miriam's, all walking with her now. The next gate waited in the distance, veiled in mist, whispering promises of revelation and flame. Chapter 12. The Cry of the Desert. The road twisted into a barren land, where nothing grew, and even the winds dared not linger long. The skies were heavy with silence, and the earth below bore the scars of storms and ages past. Rachel pressed forward, clutching the mirror of the unseen to her chest, its warmth pulsing faintly with each of her heartbeats. Far on the horizon, a single tree stood, gnarled and ancient, with roots like veins etched into the cracked soil. As Rachel drew near, she noticed a figure kneeling beneath it, a woman cloaked in linen the color of dusk, her head bowed low in the dust. "Hagar," Rachel whispered, for she knew her spirit before her name was spoken. The woman turned slowly, her face weathered but radiant, her eyes reflecting a sky that had never forgotten her. "I heard your footsteps in the silence," she said, "and I remembered the angel who found me." Rachel approached slowly. "You were cast out, left alone in the wilderness, and yet you were seen." "I was the forsaken who was never truly forsaken," Hagar replied. "In the desert, when my child cried, I could not watch him die. But the Lord heard. The one who sees heard the boy in me." Rachel sat beside her, the dust cool against her skin. "I have wandered through many sorrows. Yours was a cry not just of a mother, but of a stranger, a woman forgotten by men but held by heaven." Hagar nodded. "It is in the wilderness that we learn the name of God, not just as creator, but as witness. El Roi, the God who sees." She reached into the fold of her garment and drew forth a small flask. It shimmered like starlight caught in crystal. "This is the tear of the desert," she said. "It holds the memory of every cry unheard by the world, but remembered by the heavens. Rachel took it with reverence. The liquid inside was thick, glowing, and as she held it, she heard, faint and haunting, the weeping of mothers in tents, in ruins, in fields under the moon. She heard Hagar's cry, but also her hope. Why must the pain endure so long? Rachel asked, voice trembling. Because in pain we are refined, Hagar answered, and through it our vision clears. You seek redemption not just for yourself, Rachel, but for every woman who has ever wept alone. Take this tear. Let awaken the sleeping waters. At her words, the dry earth beneath them began to hum. From the cracks, thin streams of silver light emerged, flowing toward the horizon. The barren land began to pulse, not with life, but with promise. Rachel stood, strengthened. Thank you, Hagar. Your exile was a gateway. Your pain, a map. Go, Hagar said, her voice rising like the wind. The garden of flame awaits you. And with that, the sky broke open above them. Light cascaded down, and the desert was swallowed in radiance. Rachel closed her eyes, and when she opened them, she stood before an ancient gate of burning vines and golden fire, the threshold of a memory long buried. She took a breath, placed the tear of the desert beside the mirror of the unseen, and stepped forward into the garden of flame. Chapter 13. The Garden of Flame. The flames curled like petals of roses made of light, licking the edges of the ancient garden gate. The air shimmered with holy heat, not the fire of destruction, but of purification. Rachel stood still, the mirror of the unseen pressed to her side, and the tear of the desert glowing in her hand like a captured star. The gate recognized her. It did not open with hinges or sound, but with breath, like the garden itself exhaled. Fire parted as if in reverence, and she stepped across the threshold. Inside, the world shifted. Trees with golden leaves whispered songs only the soul could hear. Rivers flowed, not with water, but with molten light, and every flower bore a name. Names of women long forgotten, names of children lost, each bloom a memorial singing to the sky. At the center of the garden stood a throne of flame, empty but alive, burning with a presence beyond words. And around it sat 3 figures, cloaked in the glory of the heavens. They rose as one, and Rachel's knees bent instinctively, but a voice lifted her gently. Daughter of sorrow, you are not a servant here. You are kin. The first to approach her was a woman wrapped in midnight and dawn, a paradox of grief and majesty. I am Naomi, she said, who called herself Mara for the bitterness that filled her soul. But I saw redemption walk beside me, in the form of Ruth. Rachel's heart stirred. You lost everything, your sons, your home, and yet you found hope. Naomi smiled. The Lord never ceased to sow seeds in my wilderness. Even in old age, joy was born again in my arms. Then came the second, tall and radiant, bearing the scent of cedar and myrrh. I am Hannah, whose womb was once closed, whose prayers were once silent. I offer my son not to the world, but to heaven, and in that offering I was fulfilled. Rachel nodded. Your tears baptized your destiny. And finally, the third stepped forward, cloaked in moonlight and crowned with stars. You know my name, she said, and Rachel's soul wept without understanding why. Mary, Rachel breathed, falling to her knees. Mother of the promise, bearer of the light, Mary said softly. I heard the angel's voice, but also the cries of the world. I knew from the cradle to the cross that love would be pierced. Rachel reached out, trembling. And yet you stood. Because mothers do not flee from fire, Mary said. They walk through it. They hold broken bodies and sing lullabies to the dying. And still, they believe. The 3 women formed a circle around Rachel. The garden pulsed with ancient memory, and from the throne, a light began to rise. It was not a being, nor a figure, but a song, a breath, a revelation. You were never alone, the voice of the garden spoke. Each step you took through shadow was guided by the hands of those who went before you. Your tears are sacred ink. Your sorrow, a scripture. Naomi placed a seed in Rachel's palm, golden, veined with flame. Hannah poured a drop of light from her jar into Rachel's heart. Mary pressed her forehead to Rachel's and whispered, "Let your cry become a crown." Rachel stood in the garden of flame, and for the first time, the tears in her eyes did not fall from sorrow, but from awe. Then the mirror of the unseen shimmered, and the tear of the desert sang. Together, they fused into a scroll of living fire, inscribed with divine words no hand had written. Only hearts had lived. She turned, ready to leave the garden, ready to gather the morning, ready to speak what only the flames could teach. Chapter 14. The Procession of the Weeping Daughters. Beneath a sky quilted with starlight and woven winds, Rachel emerged from the garden of flame as one transfigured. The scroll of living fire pulsed with holy warmth against her chest, its runes still aglow with sorrow redeemed. Around her feet, the path had changed, no longer twisted with thorns or veiled in mist, but made clear by the footprints of those who had walked before her. The way had been paved with faith and tears. She descended into a vale called Elu's Hollow, where the cries of the mothers echoed in eternity. Each voice a tremor, each name a psalm. Rachel called out with a voice that no longer quivered, but thundered like a river breaking through stone. To the daughters of Zion, to the mothers of the covenant, come forth. And they came. From distant lands of silence and shadow, they emerged. Leah, weary-eyed but crowned with endurance. Tamar, cloaked in justice long denied. Hagar, fierce as the desert wind and gentle as the lullaby of Ishmael. Bathsheba, with the strength of oceans and the memory of David's house etched in her gaze. One by one they stepped into the light, each holding a relic of pain, a torn veil, a broken sandal, a toy never held, a lullaby never sung. These were not tokens of defeat, but holy offerings. They surrounded Rachel, their garments woven with stars, their eyes weeping and burning at once. "This is not the end of mourning," Rachel said, raising the scroll. "It is the beginning of the witness." The scroll unraveled in her hands, and a wind not of this world carried its words across the heavens. Light poured from every letter, forming images that danced in the sky. The births and burials, the dreams and losses, the sacred nights when angels watched but did not intervene. And then, from the west, came another sound. A procession of children, thousands, uncountable, of every age and tongue, came walking in robes of morning light. Some held lilies, others trumpets. Some ran barefoot across the dew-drenched grass. They laughed with joy, and their voices filled the air with a music that mended what the world had torn. Rachel fell to her knees, undone by the glory. One child stepped forward. His eyes were deep as the first ocean, and his smile held no resentment. He reached out a hand. "You called us," he said. Rachel took his hand, trembling. "Are you? We are the ones you mourned. We are the reason heaven weeps, not in sorrow, but in longing. We were never lost, only hidden, only waiting." The mothers surrounded them now, not in lament, but in worship. They lifted their arms to the skies, singing songs they had never learned but always known. Each voice layered upon the next, forming a harmony that pierced through time itself. From the east, the morning began to rise, not a sun, but something brighter. A golden figure emerged upon the horizon, riding not a chariot, but the wind. His garments were white fire, his gaze like the stillness before thunder. The Lion of Judah, the Root of David, the child promised, now risen, now returning. The children turned to him and cried, "Abba!" And he answered, "Behold, I make all things new." Rachel lifted her eyes to meet his, and in them she saw the tapestry of time. Eden's loss, Egypt's sorrow, Bethlehem's silence, and the garden tomb. But she also saw what came after, the resurrection not only of one man, but of all things sacred and buried. "You have gathered the tears," he said. "Now pour them into the river that heals the world." And she obeyed. With trembling hands, Rachel lifted the last of her tears and cast them into the flowing light. The river swelled, turned silver, and flowed outward through cities, through deserts, through time. Thus began the procession. Thus sang the mothers. Thus ended the silence. Chapter 15. The River of Tears and the Tree of Joy. The river flowed, not like water, but like memory itself, cascading through the folds of heaven and echoing back into the soul of the earth. Where Rachel's tears touched the ground, flowers of fire and dew sprang up, their petals whispering ancient lullabies. The procession of mothers followed the river's current, no longer in mourning, but in revelation. What had once been weeping had become witness. What had once been absence had become promise. Rachel walked at the head of the procession, no longer cloaked in sorrow, but robed in radiance. Her veil, once soaked in grief, now shimmered like a dawn after storm. Each step forward was a step into redemption's light. The scroll of fire had returned to her hands, its words now alive, no longer weeping, but singing. The path led to a hill, one not of battle, but of becoming. Upon its summit grew a tree like no other. Its roots sunk deep into the river of tears, its leaves of gold and emerald fluttering in a wind that carried names. The tree of joy. Rachel approached and placed her palm against the bark. She felt the beating of countless hearts within, the beat of Miriam's song, of Sarah's laughter, of Ruth's steadfastness, of Mary's quiet yes. All the mothers, all the daughters, all the children, one pulse, one promise. A voice descended like rain. This is the place where sorrow ends. And the Lion of Judah appeared, not in ferocity, but in fulfillment. His mane gleamed with starlight, and his eyes held galaxies of hope. He stood beside Rachel, no longer distant, no longer waiting. He had come. He had always been coming. You have carried the grief of generations, he said gently, and now you shall carry their glory. Behind her, the mothers gathered in a wide circle around the tree. Each one was offered a branch of it, luminous, alive, sealed with joy. When they took it, their burdens fell like old garments. They were clothed anew, in songs, in light, in the names of their children, now known, now seen. Rachel turned to the lion. What becomes of the weeping now? He smiled, and the heavens trembled with peace. It becomes the root of joy, and from it shall rise a generation not afraid to feel, not ashamed to mourn, and not hesitant to hope. The river will remember them. The tree will shelter them. And your tears, Rachel, will be the rain that blesses the world. A final light rose, not from the sky, but from within every heart. It spread outward, touching stars, healing wounds, awakening cities sleeping in the dust. The song of the mothers, now joined by the laughter of children and the roar of the lion, became the anthem of the new heavens. Rachel stood still, then whispered her last lament, a song now empty of pain, but full of longing made holy. Blessed are the tears that fall into his hands, for they shall be gathered and turned into rivers. Blessed are the mothers who remember, for they shall see their children again. And with that, the book of Rachel's lament was closed, not in sorrow, but in fulfillment. It was placed beneath the tree of joy, sealed with fire, waiting for the day it would be opened once more, when a world grown cold would need to remember the warmth of weeping made divine. And so it was, and so it shall be. Thank you for joining us on this sacred journey through Rachel's lament, the tears of the Holy Mothers. If this story touched your heart, we invite you to explore more of our audiobooks, each crafted with reverence, wonder, and a longing for the eternal. May peace accompany your steps, and may every tear find its meaning in the light of hope. Thank you for visiting our channel. Until next time, stay blessed.